Welcome to Trench Diaries. This is Blood, Dust and Snow, Chapter 15. September the 7th, 1941, Sunday. The latest news is that the advance of the far left wing is making good progress. The Reval business seems to have been sorted out, and now the infantry is rapidly moving into the wedge that we have driven towards Leningrad. In the south and in the center it's also working well, but there is something wrong at Vyazma. Vyazma had already been reported to have been taken by us. We are still standing 50 kilometers away from it, however. Schweinsberg, my radio operator, is feeling a bit better today. He isn't hurting as much as he did yesterday either. Maybe he won't have to go to the hospital. Yesterday, several Iron Cross second class were awarded in the company. Lieutenant Bongard got one and Hero Spiekermann. In our company, Meyer, the medic, and Obergefreiter Werdecker, who shot down the Rata with the Russian rifle and who is now in hospital after the mine explosion at the fort. Wilhelm Lope and I then went over to see Spiekermann to congratulate him. He was sitting in the house with Glesken and Rudi Schöner. I am not too sure what's up with the latter. Is it the influence of the woman who had herself transferred from Hamburg to see him when he was in hospital in Magdeburg? Or is he depressed because he was posted to the baggage train in the leadership reserve? They haven't even given him a light platoon, they had gone to Knust, the reservist. I myself have made the start of the Sunday morning as comfortable as possible. I slept until 8:30 a.m., then washed my whole upper body properly with lots of water. Not like the Finns, with 3 drops from the valve outlet next to the door. And now I sit in the tidy room, write and eat a bit of chocolate. Out here it can't get much better. I've been ordered to see the boss. I wonder what it could be about, maybe an invitation to dinner. Well, so much for the dinner invitation. I have been ordered to inform my crews, immediately and without delay, that they must always salute me except when in battle. Discipline in my gang has become too lackadaisical. Yes, that is the influence of the snappy second Abteilung. And when I step outside, there are Tutash, Oberholz and Turonsky, the youngest man of the company, taking the piss out of me and practicing saluting. 3 in line abreast, 1 doing the German salute, number 2 is standing to attention, and the 3rd in line is saluting me with the traditional hand to the cap. That was quite funny, and I did have to laugh about the 3 ugly bastards. September the 8th, 1941, Monday. Nothing new today, so I have just gone to visit the minister's son to report to him that there is nothing new to report. He probably didn't sleep very well. The face he made wasn't too friendly. When I think about it, it never is when he's looking at me, but I am certainly not reliant on his good mood. In the night we were woken by the harsh singing of old songs coming from where the staff is billeted. Schmauch, officer of the day, was sent over to ask them to shut up. When he got there, he found all the staff officers and the Hauptmann sitting there, so he returned without having fulfilled his task. When one is awake at night, one constantly hears the shells howling outside. An aircraft just dropped some bombs here. Now, having drunk coffee, we are back in the parlor, waiting, chatting and writing. September the 9th, 1941, Tuesday, Pikelovo. Today at 9:30 a.m., the attack on Red positions at Salesi started. Since 0700, our flyers had been busy bombing the villages and positions in front of us. At 0800, the artillery barrage began, and at 0920, a group of Ju-88s appeared, dove down on the Red positions and dropped their blessings. Just when we had climbed from the observation post, 2 groups of Stukas flew in from 2 sides. On the north-northwest side of our section of attack, an observation balloon hung in the sky, similar in shape to our barrage balloons. On the horizon, one could see the spires of Krasnovardievsk, and behind it, towards the west, a range of hills. These hills were the objective of our division. At 1100, a group of Ju-88s bombed Krasnovardievsk. And then things happened at great speed. From the hill here at the village, where there is a big children's swing, we could see that the entire horizon was shrouded in clouds. On the heights of Taisi, a locomotive on a railway train was trying to escape, but our bombers got there on time. At first, the spires of Krasnovardievsk had been well visible, but then they were also covered by thick clouds of smoke and started to burn. A gigantic picture that was. On the left wing, where our 1st Abteilung is fighting with the 36th Infantry Division, the Nebelwerferabteilung is firing several times. The 10.5 and 15 cm artillery is firing shell after shell from the barrels. And again, the Nebelwerfer fire. And just when we decide to leave, the wave of aircraft flies over and a whole series of new detonation clouds rise up in the distance. One of the bombers returns at low altitude and trailing smoke. Then it suddenly starts burning. Through my binoculars I can see the flames licking from the fuselage. What a pity, the Russian flag seems to have got this one, possibly even with a gun delivered by us. The Russian 8.8 centimeters are firing quite precisely, but our aircraft drone stubbornly onwards and ignore the bellow from below. Until they can answer in their own language, that is. They howl when our machines dive down, and then one hears the bursting crashes and sees the detonation clouds, black, white and dirty yellow, rising up on the horizon. The burning aircraft, a Ju-88, is landing in a field not far away. From up a tree we can see how the machine is being consumed by the flames. One has to acknowledge the cool-bloodedness of the pilot who managed to bring his burning kite back until, far away from the Russians, he found a place to land his death-stricken machine. I just hope the boys got out all right. We get an idea about the meaning of the term rolling operation. Quite a spectacle that we are allowed to witness here. The beautiful landscape here stood sharply divided from the scene in front by a long curtain of fiery smoke. Burning villages in between and here and there, but especially when our formations were flying in, our white signal flares signals we are here. Yes, there they are, the comrades of Panzerabteilung 65, already quite far ahead, that we have to admit. But we have to stay calm. When Raus can't advance any further, they will deploy us and call. That can happen very soon. I suppose the weather is going to improve. The smoke of the burning villages is rising vertically into the sky. I hope this rainy period is over now. Hauptmann Stern was standing next to me just now and told me that, due to the fact that more divisions have been committed, our section of attack has narrowed from 12 to only 4 kilometers. That isn't too bad at all. At 11:30 a Focke-Wulf dropped a message for the division, which we then passed on via the telephone. According to this, our tanks were only 100 meters in front of Zalesi, the artillery has ceased firing and no traffic could be observed on the road from Krasnogvardievsk to Zalesi and on the other side of Leningrad. It is now evening and there have been no news. More aircraft attacked, the artillery is firing, everywhere smoke is rising into the sky. The white signal flares, however, can only be seen in the far distance now. We will have to spend the night here and should be joining the attack tomorrow. The division's task is to advance to the second defensive line around Leningrad and then to break through it, if possible, together with the Russian troops that are flooding back from the first line towards the city. This evening ends with the field kitchen had been ordered to make goulash and noodles while we, by platoons, were to prepare the potatoes ourselves. And what did we get to eat? A brown glue in which a few overbaked scraps of meat were hidden. None of the Lancers wanted to eat the stuff. We were mutinous, so I went to the boss and gave him a piece of my mind. The boss, in his customary manner, gets a daily special dish prepared for him and, with Hauptmann Farah and selected men of other companies, doesn't ever go hungry. But the vast majority of the men run around with empty stomachs and have to rely on a few sandwiches. The guys serving with the field kitchens are living quite well too. They don't have to cook their potatoes in coffee just to save some fat. The boss was much affected when I talked of chicken murder and extra portions. But even though he didn't accept any personal responsibility, he accepted my demand that Enz needs to be punished. He's been relieved of his duty with immediate effect, and I will get him demoted too. After all, he's only been promoted to Unteroffizier because of his role as first chef and because he is not good for anything else. At 1800 there is a platoon leader's briefing. Unteroffizier Enz has been punished with 3 days detention because he didn't follow the order to cook a second meal and with a further 10 days of close arrest for having withheld a 25-liter canister of cooking fat. September the 10th, 1941, Wednesday. Prepared to move out at 5:30 a.m. and then marched towards Sabino. We are now in a forest to the north of it. Soon we are supposed to advance on the long defensive line from which we are still being shelled by artillery. We had some bad luck today. Oberleutnant von Seckendorf wounded and his adjutant too. The commander of the 1st Abteilung of Artillery Regiment 76, a major, has been killed. Oberst Zollenkopf was also wounded, as was the commander of the Kratzschützen Hauptmann Knaust. In addition, a large number of the rank and file were lost. We didn't see much of that, however. Even though the Russians were shelling Sabino, our tanks offered us good protection, as did the houses. But a little bit further to the front, where the staff of the Kratzschützen and that of 114 is, there is a wide open ground in full view of the Russians, and there it was a lot more violent. Even here in the forest there were too many distractions. Just now, a whole group of Henschel-Stukas attacked the Russian positions. We can only be happy about this operational deployment of our Luftwaffe, as it takes a lot of work off our shoulders. In forest fighting, it's often hard to tell who is doing the shooting. Are these our shells or theirs? Stukas are howling again now. The Russian isn't giving up easily, now that he knows there is not much left to fall back upon, being so close to Leningrad. The positions at Sabino were grimly defended. The whole forefield was covered with mines, and 4 Panzer IVs and 2 Panzer IIs are said to have been lost. 2 of the heavy tanks of Abteilung 65 I've seen myself. They were standing nearby. Next to them stood an artillery tractor with an anti-tank gun, or better, lay an artillery tractor, as it had run onto a mine and the detonation had flicked the heavy vehicle onto its back. In the tanks, 2 men had been killed. Just now a few Ratas were chasing one of our Focke-Wulf recon birds. It came in very low right across the treetops, and there, when they were over our lines, the Ratas turned back towards the Russian side. Yesterday, I only once saw some Ratas, a group of 6 of them. Other than that, not a single Russian aircraft made an appearance. Our good Messerschmitts even flew ground attacks with guns and bombs. Looking on the map, we've just noticed that our whole flank is still open. Down at Korpikovo, the Russians are still clinging stubbornly to their anti-tank defenses. That's the objective of the SS Polizeidivision, and from there the enemy has a field of fire towards Salesi. Wilhelm Lope was there to see me. He thinks that we won't capture these tank obstacles. He thinks it's better to just close the shop here and then simply starve Leningrad out. Even though that would take a bit longer, it would cause us far fewer casualties. We've already lost enough men as it is. I don't know what to think. Better to attack now, smoke the enemy out, and then halt our infantry formations on the line of Krasnoye Selo until the Russians come over with their hands raised. If only we could look into the future. September the 28th, 1941, Sunday. We are still lying in front of the little village in front of Demidov. We spent the night in the Russian cottage again with the 16 men and a complete Russian family. Yesterday night I finally received a new pair of trousers. Today I put on fresh underwear while the women here washed my dirty laundry. Who knows when we'll have time to wash our laundry properly again. The Russians always make big eyes when they see us washing our naked upper bodies in the morning. When they saw me standing there with bare feet today, some of the Russians remarked that I might freeze if I continued doing so. It wasn't even that cold. Not even frosty as in the previous nights. This morning we had potato fritters. It's Tutas's birthday, so Pause and Oberholz peeled and grated the potatoes, and the women prepared the fritters for us, worked the pans, later assisted by Oberholz and Wiegand. Lovely things with lots of fat and bacon. These were then dipped into a bowl full of cream, and they tasted heavenly. We saved one portion for later because at the moment our regular supplies do not suffice. Same day, 2000 hours. Just back from the regiment. Sad news. One of our good officers, Hauptmann Saalbach, is leaving us tomorrow because he has fallen ill. Even though he looks healthy enough, he has severe breathing problems, probably severe asthma. He can't cope with the climate, apparently. He's leaving tomorrow morning, very sad. He was very good and very fair superior. I have experienced myself how important that is out here. Koll has taken over the brigade, Ritgen is adjutant. Theo is taking over 7th Company. I am now sitting with Goslar, Engelhardt and Albert, who have been sitting here since the morning playing a relentless game of cards. This evening is one of those where the army really pisses me off. September the 30th, 1941, Tuesday. We are waiting alongside the road until the company can fall in line behind the staff. 09:30, today we are driving towards the deployment area for the brigade attack. I have taken my old place in the turret and quickly scribbled down a few lines. My hands have turned blue in the cold. Just now, we've said farewell to our Russian hosts. They are looking forward to the day when we will finish the Bolsheviks off. Wherever we have to say goodbye, the farewell is usually quite jovial. Yesterday night, the old farmer gave us some schnapps, which we of course shared with him. He solemnly stood up and raised a glass to Hitler and his good soldiers. We were flabbergasted, and when I left this morning and I shook hands with him and his wife, they both wished us a good homecoming and expressed their hopes that we'd end our business in Moscow soon. The old fellow in Hilles' quarters conducted himself even more wildly. He tried to hug and kiss the Spieß, and his expression of gratitude and wishes of well-being were never ending. We are now standing on the road behind Sporky and wait until it is 1700 hours. We are not to reach our deployment area before nightfall. On the way here, we only saw a few graves and little actual traces of fighting. The fighting here has been as hard as it was closer to Leningrad. In Demidov, about 40 kilometers away, we have seen the last graves. They had been dug right in the middle of the village near the church at the foot of a large wooden cross. They looked very nice and dignified. The path of our division has in recent days been turned into a log road. Otherwise it would have been impassable. All the women from the nearby villages had to help to get that work done. All the men seem to have been drafted. One can see only boys and the ancient Rasputins at work here. The roads are very much the same as in the area of Leningrad. Now then, off we go. Away with the diary, the advance continues further towards the east, our objective being the position along the upper reaches of the Dnieper. Just now the medical squadron rolled past. I hope they won't be as busy as they have been so far. A few guys from Wuppertal are currently taking the piss out of Feldwebel Müller, their husband, in their native dialect. At least, the men of the Organisation Tod are not being entirely weaned of the experiences of married life and have plenty of opportunity to keep in training with the girls during road construction. And the banter continues. Müller states that he has learned patience and, in that regard too, even though he had once been quite a stud, which had forced him to marry when he was only 20. Now they have wagered a crate of beer on whether the war will be over by October the 20th. Maybe we are done with it all in a month or in early November. As long as there is no snow or ice then, there's still a chance. I now have to think about coming home, the good and healthy return which the Russians have denied me so far. How will it be back at home in Hamburg? Do I go back to school, to university maybe? Or do I find a job? One is better off not to think about things like that here. There are far too many things to get done first. October the 1st, 1941, Wednesday. The weird coincidences one experiences on campaign. We are in the deployment area right next to where some chaps from Osnabrück have set up their guns. My old SS comrade and schoolmate Helmut Boghoff is serving as a lieutenant in their 9th battery. A shame that I could not leave my position here. I would have liked to visit that hulk of a man. One can't help but marvel about how busy it is here in the deployment area. Boy oh boy, what an enormous amount of troops we Germans have drawn together. I hope it all goes smoothly tomorrow. How long will it take us to reach the Dnieper? Will the Russians face us with tanks? How many days will the whole thing go on for? These are my thoughts today, the day before the attack on Moscow. On August the 8th, we launched a breakout from the Luga bridgehead. On September the 9th, the attack on the line of Krasnogvardievsk started, and now, on October the 1st, we stand in front of Vazma and as such in front of Moscow. Will that be our last deployment in Russia? Everyone would be delighted if so. The whole plain is full of tanks, one right next to another, towards the left and towards the right, for as far as the eye can see. The Russians are shelling the area with 15-centimeter shells, and in front the Russians are blasting away with all calibers imaginable. They've clearly got wind of our deployment here. Short episode today because there is a chapter break in the book, and also I'm quite busy with work. Anyway, the next chapter of the book is prefaced by a general situational overview of the campaign in the East, and as such I think this is a good place to end the episode, even if it's a bit short. As you may have noticed, our author has been redeployed, turned away from Leningrad, and is now heading towards Moscow, which is an entirely new phase of the campaign. German troops came very close to taking Moscow, but how and why it did not work will be explained in the next episode. Funny to me, with hindsight, is that some dudes are actually putting into wager that the war will be over in about a month's time. Even though that shows extreme confidence on their part, they can't even get regular ration service, not least because some idiot is holding back foodstuffs for himself. That guy can count himself very lucky for just getting a few days of a rest. So, onwards to Moscow, we'll see how it plays out for our boy in the next episode. See you then, cheers and bye bye.